Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor with another edition of my Trumpology Report. Today, January 20th, 2017. This is the day that Donald Trump was inaugurated as President of the United States. And the birth of his inauguration, the inauguration chart is noon, January 20th, 2017 in Washington, D.C. For those of you who don't have access to an astrology program, this is the printout of the actual inauguration chart. If you would like that and you don't have the wherewithal, the ability to generate your own chart, just send me an email at starmax@bellsouth.net, or just go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com, and ask me to send you a copy of his inauguration chart, the actual printout itself. It has a lot more activity on it than what I'm going to share with you today. I've simplified it, but I'd be happy to email that to you, okay? And if you don't have your own birth chart and you'd like a printout of it, do the same thing with your birth data, the month, day, and year, the city, the city and state, of course, and the exact time you were born. And I will email you a printout of your own birth chart. On my YouTube channel, if you scroll down, you'll see that I have done videos, TV shows on how to interpret your birth chart. And so if you have a copy of it in front of you, you can learn astrology by seeing how marvelous and fabulous you are. Okay, let's talk about Trump's inauguration chart. And then what I'm going to share with you is what Trump triggers in the United States chart. I've done this before, but it certainly bears repetition now in light of his speech that he gave, because some of you have asked me questions on Facebook about whether he was going to be able to fulfill his promises. And so I will do my very best to answer your questions. Okay, so here is the inauguration chart. It's got a Taurus ascendant, so it's stubborn, it's fixed, it's determined. It adds a certain strength, grounding to the inauguration itself. He's got a Capricorn midheaven, which is very traditional because our government, I guess, it represents our government. Capricorn is the sign of government as well as real estate, etc. And the sun, the center of our world, I put it in yellow so you could see it because I drew it a little small, is up there in the 10th house. So the center of his life is his career. Now, this is true for anybody who is inaugurated at noon in Washington, D.C. That's what happens. If he were inaugurated a few minutes later, the sun would be in the 9th house. So the center of his inauguration is his career, is his public image, as with all presidents that I know of. So this is very traditional, and it indicates a lot of power, sun, in the hands of the leader, which would be Donald Trump. Okay. And I think that's a good thing to have the sun in the 10th rather than the 9th. That's a personal opinion, because I think his focus really needs to be on the presidency. Okay. Now, if you will recall, the diurnal for today, his diurnal for today, had Mars on the diurnal ascendant. Mars is me, me, me. Mars is what we fight for, we fight with. And so on the ascendant of the diurnal chart, this gives a very strong me first quality. I think that is very normal for Trump. And this is why when I was doing predictions, election predictions, back in 2015, at first I wasn't sure that he was going to be our president because the diurnal chart was too ego-centered. And what I've come to see is that that absolutely does describe the inauguration. And when I looked at Hillary's chart, I didn't have an exact birth time for her, but she didn't look like, it didn't produce a viable diurnal chart, which is why I said, yep, he's going to be our president. And he is. Okay, 11th house. This is a very interesting house because it deals with people. It deals with the people. It deals with Congress, legislation, the Treasury. It deals with our friends, and it deals with city and county groups. Well, he's dealing on a national level. So let's look and see what's in that 11th house of Congress. All right. First of all, the South Node is there. The South Node is traditionally that area that if we spend too much time in that area, it's going to drain us. It is not the most propitious placement for the South Node. What it says is he has mastered relationships with Congress, with large groups of people in past lives, and so he's naturally attracted to it. Okay. Neptune, the planet of wishful thinking or the fulfillment of the dream. I always say wherever Neptune is, that's where you have visions of sugar plums. So there's a certain amount of idealism and involved in his dealings with Congress. And Neptune is a smokescreen. So we may not get all of the information from Congress that we might like, but as you and I know, much of what goes on in government goes on behind the scenes or is just obfuscated. And so that indicates where it might go. The South Node is conjunct Neptune, and so there is a tendency for a certain amount of wishful thinking and possibly deception. That's simply Neptune. It has nothing to do with Trump. This is Neptune. And in the 11th house, it deals with Congress, his dealings with Congress, etc. Now, Venus, the lesser benefic, money, love, happiness, is in the 11th house. And so he can do very nicely. Hear how it's a contradictory message? He can deal very nicely with Congress. At the same time, though, Mars, I had to put it down here in order to get it in the 11th house. It's very close to the 12th cusp, but Mars is what you fight with and what you fight for. So if Venus is love, Mars is hate, so he's going to have a love-hate relationship with Congress, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. Now, I'm not doing any of the other aspects. I'm just doing house placements. But those of you who study astrology, let me just mention, if you have the chart in front of you, you've seen it. Saturn in the 8th house of taxes is squaring the Venus-Mars. His Venus-Mars. And so it can be the taxes involved with getting his hopes and wishes, the 11th house, passed. That is the block. Makes sense. You can understand that because to pay for what he has said he would love to do is going to cost money. And so where is that money going to come from? Well, the 8th house of taxes says not here. Now, it can also be money from other sources, whether our the 7th houses are open enemies, and the 8th house is their money, so it would be our frenemies. And there's a very Saturnian note to that says, no, we're going to slow it down a little bit here. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to fulfill all of his hopes and wishes and dreams simply because of money. Now, let's look at this 12th house. This is very interesting. Uranus, the planet of rebellion. Uranus, the great awakener, is behind the scenes in the 12th house. And this means that a lot of things that are of a rebellious, unexpected nature are going to take place, and we may not even know about it. Uranus rules machinery, it rules electronics, it rules computers. So the unexpected relating to computers can be hacking. This can also be an interesting development. I've got his real sure enough chart here, so I'm looking at it. Yeah. Uranus is opposed by Jupiter and squared by Pluto. So there can be extremely unexpected situations dealing with electronics and rebellion that we're not necessarily aware of. Now, the 12th house in a mundane chart, and this is a mundane chart, deals with spies and hidden enemies, jails, slaves, welfare, charitable institutions. It deals with illnesses. It deals with drugs and all kinds of things that are undercover. Just looking at welfare in this way, there can be something unexpected about that. Perhaps it's Social Security, perhaps it's welfare, but there is a certain amount of rebellion going on there. Okay, now let's move forward. The North Node, which is that area of the chart that produces, in your chart and my chart, produces success and fulfillment, is in the 5th house. 5th house in a birth chart deals with fun and games, sex, movies, enjoyment of all types, and it deals with children. Well, in a mundane chart, it does too. So children, and we know how he really loves his grandchildren and his children, so this would make sense that the North Node would be there. Gambling, public schools, congressional and public hearings, stadiums, and teachers. So he has an opportunity to really do some good stuff in those areas. Now, jobs, this is very important. This is the 6th house. Jobs and workers are indicated by the 6th house. That we're talking about the military as well, police and military, civil servants, the fire department, and jobs across the board, not careers, but jobs. Very interesting. He has his vertex in the 6th house of work, health, service, jobs, public servants. And so this is part of his karmic role in his inauguration, in his presidency, in his inauguration chart, and therefore the 4 years that he is supposed to be president. This goes for 4 years. And what I'll do as time marches forward, I will look and see what's going on in this inauguration chart, as well as the United States chart, as well as his chart. I'll have a lot to share with you. Okay, he has Jupiter, expansion, the great benefic, in his 6th house of civil servants, civil service. This is also the house of pets and animals. I don't know how that's going to play into it, but jobs, health, the health of our country, and let's face it, we're talking about health care. We're talking about how we deal with our health and our health insurance. That's the 6th house right there. The moon is there. The moon is in Scorpio, the most powerful, intense, all or nothing sign in the zodiac. The moon is what we are instinctively drawn to. In a mundane chart, it triggers change. And so we're looking at change and Jupiter, a lot of it, when it comes to our health care, our workers, the military, police, fire, the things that we need to run our lives daily. Very, very important. Now, I talked about Saturn, reality, and possibly resistance and restriction in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house in a birth chart is secrets. It's other people's money. It's transformation on its highest level. Since this is a mundane chart, I'm going to interpret this much more traditionally because I've seen that that's how it shakes out. So Saturn in the 8th. Saturn is responsibility, responding to your ability, but it's also fear and restriction. I already mentioned that that is probably the restriction that Congress is going to feel. The 8th house in a mundane chart rules our debts, taxes, losses, death, and secrets. And so the Saturn there, Saturn wants to make things tangible. And so Saturn in the 8th wants to make secrets tangible, bring them out to the limelight. But in the 8th house, it is secretive. So there is a restriction dealing with other people's money that can prevent him from creating what he wants. 9th house, very interesting. Now, I know those of you who study astrology know that I'm not doing the aspects because it gets a little complicated. I did do the Saturn to the Venus Mars because that's so obviously part of what he is promising. Okay, so it really bears attention. Mercury, the planet of the conscious mind, wherever it is, that's what you think about and what you talk about. It's in the 9th house, which is a very lovely house, I think. It deals with the upper courts, foreign travel, religion, education, the clergy. It deals with the Supreme Court. Okay, so this is going to be very interesting. It deals with world trade. It also deals with universities. So all of those things, wherever Mercury is, that's what you talk about and you think about. So this is communication with foreigners, with other countries. And Pluto is in that house as well. It is widely conjunct the midheaven. Pluto is the planet of control. And Trump has said in his inauguration speech that America was going to come first. And so there can be a total transformation, Pluto, in our relationships with foreign countries. Well, I think there already has been. Russia, China, prior to his taking office. Well, it's going to continue. There is, and it shows that there can be a hidden control from these nations that influences the presidency. Very, very interesting. Okay, I could go on and on, but I don't want to overwhelm people. Okay, now I would love to share with you. I've got all these papers here, so bear with me, kids. The United States chart and what Trump adds to it, what he triggers in it. There are a few United States charts around. Those of us who study astrology know this. And I started studying astrology in 1966. I have found that the chart that works for me is the Gemini Ascendant chart, astrologers. And I'll tell you why I think it works in just 1 second, because I will tell you what Trump triggers in the U.S. chart, and you can see why I'm partial to it. Okay, let me make sure I've got everything here. Yes, I have not put the entire U.S. chart up here. I'm only going to talk about those planets that Trump's chart sit on, the conjunctions. Okay, I realize I'm speaking to people who have studied astrology and people who know nothing about it. So I want to use the as much technical terminology as I have to, or should I say as little terminology as I have to make it easy for everybody to understand what I'm saying. So let's talk about the United States chart and what Trump triggers in it. Well, what's so interesting is the United States chart has a Gemini ascendant, which is communication, correspondence, transportation. It has Uranus in it. We have Uranus in our United States first house. Uranus, the first house, is the temperament of the people. It's the personality of the people. It's the me first house. It's the political mood. It's public health. And it's our personality. Well, Uranus is the rebel. And remember, when we established the United States many years ago, we were rebelling. We were breaking away from England. And so Trump's Uranus, his rebellion, sits on our rebellion. It also sits on our ascendant. And so he fires us up, but that's not the only thing he does. He triggers rebellion, innovation. people had said that they wanted change. Well, Uranus has certainly changed. And Uranus is the unexpected. And that is what he triggers in the United States chart. So we can continue to expect the unexpected with a resulting reaction. Now, I can't leave that first house yet because look at all this stuff here. Uranus is an explosive planet. It sits on our Mars. Wherever Mars is in your chart, that's what you put first. That's what you fight with or for. Mars is sex, Mars is gunfire, it's warfare, it's passion. And so Trump's Uranus sits on our Mars, and there can be explosiveness, which I believe we've already seen in his rallies, and that's what's going to continue now. The North Node, his North Node sits on Mars, and the North Node is the area of greatest success and fulfillment, traditionally. And so the North Node can be very helpful in directing our anger, and Trump's sun, the center of his life, sits on our Mars. And so what Trump triggers is anger and rebellion. And so I know he talked about unifying our country. You tell me, you think that's an indication of unification? I'll tell you how it could work. And I'm not suggesting this. If we had a common foe, it would work magnificently. Hopefully, we will not be involved in anything where we have an open enemy of that type. So that's what's just sitting there, okay? Now let's look at the second house of money, because the second house in a mundane chart deals with our earnings, our finances, banks, the stock exchange, probably e-commerce as well as just plain old commerce, and our debts. Well, in the United States chart, we have a beautiful placement of Venus and Jupiter, the two benefics. Venus is love and money. Jupiter is expansiveness, friendship, truth, and money. And the sun is the center of our life. This is really cool. Well, Trump's Mercury sits on our second house planets, in our second house of finances. Now, Mercury is a neutral planet. Wherever it is what you think about and talk about. Okay, so we're thinking about it and talking about it. He's thinking about it and talking about it. People in the United States are thinking about it and talking about it. It is not necessarily something Mercury is not an action planet. It's a talking planet. It's a thinking planet. So it could be that there is more income for us in Mercury-ruled ventures. That would be the way I would use this if this were a client rather than a country. That's how I would advise them. So let's look at our communication. Now, Trump already said this afternoon when he was inaugurated, that he wanted to repair our roads, our highways. Well, that local roads would be the third house. National roads might be the ninth. But let's look and see here. In the United States chart, we have Mercury, which rules traditionally the third house. It is the planet of communication and transportation, and it's in the third house of communication and transportation. So this is really cool. That may be why our roads are so torn up, because we use them a lot, obviously. I'm not really being facetious. Okay, Saturn, planet of restriction and reality and responsibility, sits on our Mercury. So we are seriously thinking about how we're going to deal with all third house matters, which are communication, transportation, railroads, post offices, public opinion, traffic, short distance travel, books and newspapers, of course, the internet naturally, neighborhood matters, and schools. Schools. Okay, let's talk about this. There is Saturn is on our Mercury, And so we're either thinking very seriously about schools, or there is a restriction that is imposed by Trump's Saturn in our third house of schools and communication and roads and everything that he talked, not everything, he didn't talk about schools this morning, but that's what's involved. Venus, love, money, beauty, also sits on our Mercury. And so I'm going to interpret this as Trump encouraging everyone in the United States to take the matters of third house matters of schools, communication, correspondence, postal service, traffic, all of that very seriously and very favorably. Venus, love. Now, Pluto, total change or control. Pluto is either total change, total transformation, or total control. It's all or nothing. It sits on our north node in our third house. And so we are changing, either totally changing our whole concept of everything I've just described, or there is a control factor, or both. Remember, these are Trump's planets sitting on the United States chart. Very interesting. Now, look at this fourth house. His Mars is in our fourth house. Mars is what we fight with and fight for. Mars is passion, it's gunfire, it's sex, it's anger, it's my way or the highway. The fourth house in the United States chart, in any mundane chart, deals with the party out of power. So that would be the Democrats, of course. And there he is with Mars there, so there could be some disagreements. Is that politically correct? Disagreements. It deals with domestic affairs, real estate, weather, the weather, global warming perhaps, farmers, builders, crops, mines and miners, and senior citizens. Okay. There seems to be a little bit of anger there that he triggers in that area. It can be something very dear to his heart that he is passionate about, all of those areas. Okay. And his ascendant is there. And so he is putting his energy into these areas. We'll have to wait and see how it manifests. Fifth house of fun and games and sex and movie theaters and sports and everything that's fun, and children. So let me see if I've covered. Yes, sports, gambling, the birth rate, congressional and public hearings, and teachers. As a retired school teacher, I'm included in that. Are you? Have you taught school? Okay. And of course, seniors would be the fourth house. Okay. Trump's Neptune. Neptune dissolves things. It is wishful thinking. Saturn in that fifth house says, I'm making this tangible. I'm making it real. Of course, they probably didn't have sports stadiums back when our country was born in 1776, but they did have children, and they did have fun. So, and they did have public hearings. And so with his Jupiter right here, expansion, and Neptune in that fifth house, he can actually dissolve restrictions in this area and help them expand. And I don't know how that will manifest. Again, we'll have to wait and see what he does. His south node and the moon are in his seventh house. Now, in the seventh house of the United States chart. The seventh house in a mundane chart deals with our open enemies, international affairs, war, lawsuits, lawyers, marriage, of course, politics, the lower courts, and all contracts. All right. With a south node there, that's the area of drain, of loss for our country. And the moon is change. Trump's moon, of course, sitting in that seventh house, he's got a Sagittarius moon. This can be a change in our allies. The seventh house is our allies. I call the seventh house frenemies because it's the house of marriage and the house of divorce. Okay, this is not really great for our relationships with our allies, and I think I'll just leave it at that because once again, the moon is change. So wherever we're at now, that's getting ready to undergo a change. Keep in mind also that those of you who have the Gemini rising chart, that Trump's moon south node is in opposition to the United States Mars, and that reinforces the anger. And so let's look at our ninth house in the United States chart. The ninth house, and now we've got our south node up there, but nothing in Trump's chart triggers our Pluto except his vertex. And so that's what I put up here. Once again, the ninth house deals with the upper courts, foreign travel, foreigners, religion, education. It deals with the Supreme Court. It deals with world trade and universities, world trade. The vertex is your karmic role in life. And so that vertex, Trump's vertex, on our Pluto indicates, first of all, with Pluto in our ninth house, our belief system, our principle, the principles by which we live are either be in control or totally transform our beliefs. At some point in time, that's going to happen, and I'll tell you when that time is going to be, when Pluto returns to its natal place in the United States chart in about, I don't have an ephemeris in front of me, but I'm going to say 3 to 4 years. And this is when we will truly see a total transformation, out with the old, in with the new, when it comes to our relationship with foreign countries. We're already starting to feel it because Pluto is in about 18 degrees of Capricorn. Our Pluto in the United States chart is 27. So we've got a little ways to go, but that is when we will see it. So Trump's vertex on our Pluto has us changing our relationships with foreigners, with world trade. We've already seen it happening. So I think I'm going to stop here because I've covered the basics. What I'm going to do is keep following our new president's chart. I'm going to look at his inauguration chart. When the eclipses occur, I'll go into his birth chart. I'll go into the United States chart and the inauguration chart. So I'll keep you posted. And if you have questions, of course, please feel free to ask. And so having said all this right now, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours, and may the stars shine brightly on the United States of America.